I needed a business that was going to be easy. I needed things that felt within my mental capacity, and that's what I created. And there are so many different ways to do that when it comes to reselling, that don't get caught up in what one person is doing and how they had success for them, because all you need to do is figure out a way to set up your business in a way that you can be consistent. Welcome to the very first episode of the Gem Finders podcast. I'm Amber.
And I am Sean.
And we have zero plan. We don't know what we're doing, and we're going to figure it out along the way. But somehow I have gone from selling $10 Forever 21 dresses that I wore in high school to growing a business that supports both of us full time. I am excited to get our story out there, and hopefully you'll learn some things from us along the way, maybe.
And somehow I got roped into selling vintage glass and brass and stone items, which I never had any interest in whatsoever.
And you spend so much of your life antiquing now. So I guess the story really begins. The first few years of our relationship, finances were rough. Because you had eBay experience before me.
Just the first few years of our relationship, finances were rough?
No, but especially those years.
Okay.
Things have only just begun to financially kind of turn around. But so I remember literally.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to not answer your question. Yes, I did have some eBay experience, mostly buying. I didn't sell a ton, but I was into action figures my entire life. So I would go through phases of buying tons of action figures and then being broke and having to sell them. So I had some eBay experience from that.
So I remember literally being in our old house and looking around and being like, what can we sell? Because we needed a few more $100s to be able to pay all our bills. Yeah. And our parents would give us stuff. Our parents would be like, you want to sell this?
Yeah. My mom still gives us some stuff occasionally to see if I want to sell it.
I just recently told my mom that I'm good. I just want to focus on the vintage stuff. But so we were just listing things left and right. And then I really ramped up my reselling when we were getting ready to move. I was actually getting ready to move south, and that's another story for another day. But I was getting rid of everything I owned because I really wanted to move to Charleston. And I was just listing everything. I was listing jackets and jeans and shoes and purses and stuff I didn't even think people were going to buy. And then quickly, that turned into $3,000. And I was like, okay, there is some potential to reselling. And it was something that was easy. It was something that I could spend 10 minutes doing a day or 3 hours doing a day. And when I was consistent with it, I saw money come in. And that was really nice.
It's always nice to see money coming, no matter how it's coming in.
So fast forward a little bit of time. We ended up buying our first house in January of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that we had, all of the money we had went into the down payment of the house. So we had very little that we were working with when we moved in. So we were going to estate sales and thrift stores and flea markets and trying to find the most budget-friendly house things that we could. And while we were there, I was falling in love with all of the other pretty things that caught my eye. I really liked the glassware, and I liked finding home decor when I should have been focusing on furniture. But there were a lot of things that caught my eye, and I definitely still needed to make some extra money. And I started listing items we found on eBay because we definitely couldn't fit it all in our house. And there were a lot of things I was finding that didn't really match what I was trying to turn the house into. And so I figured I would just start listing them and see what happened. So I listed them on eBay and Poshmark and Mercari. And I tried to list at least a few things a day. And I lost my train of thought.
And while she was doing this, I had a job at the time, and I eventually quit that job. And I was just selling my action figures and video games and things that some of them were from my childhood, some of them that I had collected more recently. But I just kind of felt like I kind of outgrew the hobby and I needed money too. So I started doing that. So we were doing the same thing, but in totally different categories. And I think that's kind of maybe why transitioning to helping you was a little bit smoother, because I kind of already had some experience and kind of knew what I was doing. But packing up glassware is way different than packing up action figures. It takes much longer, and you have to be so much more careful and use so many more packing supplies. So
Shipping is rough. The next step from there was I saw a good amount of money coming in from eBay and Poshmark and Macari, and that's really made me realize, what if I made this a business? What if I really started taking it seriously? Because I had tried a variety of different businesses in the past, and I had some success some places, but nothing that really stuck, nothing that really felt like it brought in enough income or enough joy to like support my life. So once I decided that I wanted to take things seriously, I was going to start a website. And in my head, I was like, well, I should start social media at the same time that I start the website. So I actually made an Instagram account first, and I started following the world of reselling on Instagram. And before I even had a chance to get the website up, I was just like, well, let me try Instagram. I'm going to list some things on Instagram, show the products I have, and we'll see what happens. And I was not expecting it to take off, but it did. It did. And it's so much so that I didn't even create the website until at least a year later.
that was in February or March of this year that we launched it, right?
I spent about a year reselling on the platforms after we'd moved in. And then I probably spent about a year on Instagram, and then about another year, roughly another year before I started the website.
But the Instagram didn't take off right away. You made it sound like you post on Instagram and everything instantly blew up.
No, it did not.
Yes.
That's not the case. No. But I did make enough sales where it was keeping me busy, but not necessarily like supporting me. And I definitely hustled for sales. I hustled to build an audience. I saw the potential, and I dedicated a lot of time into Instagram, which I think is what has really taken the business to the next level.
That's where, still, even with the website launch, that's where most of our sales come from. And I think that it helps having a following like that on a social media platform, because you're able to connect on a more personal level and interact with customers one-on-one. And I think that more personal connection brings in more repeat customers, and it kind of creates more loyal customers than if you're just buying something off a website. It's a much different experience.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the reasons that I wanted to start Instagram after eBay and all of the other platforms, was because I really liked selling, but there was no personal connection. Really didn't have a lot of repeat customers. There weren't people who were paying attention to what I found. It was just, I happened to have an item that they were looking for. They bought it, and then I never heard from them again. So even though those platforms are nice because they expose you to a lot of people, I think that the stability of the business really came in when I started building a community and a following around vintage reselling and vintage items on Instagram. And then about a year and a half ago, I was just having more orders come in than I could handle by myself. I couldn't ship them fast enough. I was really stressed out. I had some trips coming up with my family, and I wanted to be able to keep the business going while traveling. And that's when you really stepped in and started taking over a lot of packing and shipping.
My primary roles are inventory and packing, wrapping the items. You take care of the actual shipping process.
Yeah.
But when you had to take those trips, that's whenever I started doing a couple lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I felt like I was really becoming a part of the business, I guess. Because it's one thing to just be doing tasks behind the scenes, like wrapping and the inventory and stuff. But I think like once I got on camera and was interacting with the customers one-on-one and in the live sales, that kind of made me feel more like I was actually a part of the business and not, I guess, just like an employee. It made me feel more connected to it.
And he had helped on and off when the work was there. When I was overwhelmed, and I would pay him to help with packing and shipping, and then things would slow down, and then I couldn't pay another person. I just had to pay me. So he had helped on and off. And then it was when we started live sales on Instagram that I was really able to start paying both of us.
Because that is when things really picked up sales wise. You're right. You were making enough to support you and to pay the bills and to get by. But once we actually started doing the live sales consistently, that's when we started making way more money from a single live sell than we ever thought we would make
Yeah.
more in a single live sell than we thought we would make in a week. At least me. I
Yeah.
don't want to speak for you on that, but I never thought that we would make as much as we've made in some of these live sells in 3 to 4 hours sometimes. To me, that's crazy.
And it's so crazy because, like I said before, I had tried so many different avenues of owning a business because that path was always looked appealing to me, to be in control and to be my own boss and to have the flexibility and also the potential to make an impact that comes with owning a business. But nothing stuck quite like this. And it's really funny to me because I was so strategic about so many of the other businesses that I started. And for a while I was in marketing and PR. So I really had a business mindset for a lot of different things. And then I started this and I didn't have time for any of that. I have just been flying by the seat of my pants. Is that the right way to?
That's one of the sayings that you always use. Yes.
So I have just been flying through this, just trying to like make it through every week and just doing whatever I can. And it's crazy because this is the business that I've had the most success at. And it is the one that I work really hard, but there wasn't a lot of trying to make success happen. Just all kind of naturally unfolded, which was really eye-opening because if you would have asked me before this, I would have said to you, well, in order to start a vintage shop, you need a social media presence and a logo and branding and a website and all of these things, business plan that you should have. But going into this, I had none of that.
Desperation can make crazy things happen.
I was literally just desperate. And now it is about so much more than the money because we have connected on such a deep level with so many of our customers. And it is really fulfilling to be able to give these items a new life and to get them in the hands of somebody else. And so now there is a bigger purpose to the business. But at the time, it was just like, how do I bridge that gap in money between what I'm making and what we have to pay in bills and the mortgage? So you're right. Desperation can really bring things out of you.
It's crazy that I feel like the personal connection to the people too, but I get this weird personal connection and attachment to the items themselves too, because while I'm going through the process of inventorying,
He's never shared this with me before.
I haven't, but I've been thinking about this for a while, and I was going to save it for the podcast. Going through the process of inventorying and cleaning the items. Sometimes when we get these items, they're filthy, and you don't know if they're going to clean up, what they're going to look like when they're finally clean. And going through that process, and when you take one of those dirty items and clean it up and it looks brand new, to me, I feel like a sense of pride and attachment to those items. All of them in a way, because there is a lot of work that goes into the inventorying and the cleaning process. Every item that we get, it goes through an extensive process before it gets photographed and listed and sent to the customers. Throughout that process, I just feel like there's this journey that we go through and this attachment that kind of develops with all the items along the way. So that's another reason why I think we take a lot of pride in our packing. And that's another reason why this year, I don't think we've had anything actually break that wasn't already damaged.
We had one item that was damaged that broke, but it was already damaged and the customer knew that. And then we had another item where it was glued together and it came apart. 2 items like that. But that was nothing broke.
So we haven't had anything actually break. And I take pride in that. I know you take pride in that. And that's
Absolutely.
another reason why, because I get that attachment to them. I don't want this. I don't want to go through all of that work of cleaning this up and making it look good, and the presentation, whether it's on the live sell or the photographs on the website. I don't want that to be all for nothing and then it breaks along the way. That's just sad.
That leads into my first piece of advice for you if you are starting an online vintage shop, is to prioritize shipping at all costs, because I think that has been a huge reason that people have continued to shop from us, and we've built a lot of loyalty with customers because they know that there's a very small chance, obviously things do happen every once in a while, but there's a very small chance that their items from us are going to break in transit. And they know how much pride and how much dedication and how much we invest in shipping.
We spend a lot of money on packing supplies, a lot.
But it keeps people coming back. So if you were thinking about exploring this, it's worth it to prioritize your shipping and your packaging.
It is. And nothing makes me happier than when we get comments about people say that your packages would survive a plane crash and stuff like that. I don't know. That's feels good whenever you see comments like that.
Yeah.
Makes it feel worth it, because it takes a long time to wrap up an order, typically.
And then something else that I think is really important if you are just starting your journey or if you're thinking about starting a shop is consistency. I think that that is one thing that has carried me through every single aspect of this business, even since my eBay days, is I always tried to list a minimum of 1 to 2 items a day. If I couldn't list 10 items that day, it was fine. I tried to list 1 to 2. And same thing with social media. I have really tried to be consistent with showing up, and my content is very similar. I put very little mental thought into my content because a lot of it is filming hauls and doing the same things over and over with new items. And I think that that's just fine. You don't have to obviously getting creative with content is really fun and exciting to do, but it's not a must have. You don't have to do that. You really can just show up and build something, because that consistency is so important. When people see you every week and we're consistent with our live sales, they know that they're going to see us 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday. And sometimes life happens, but we've had to only move maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, it's been very few since we started.
So consistency is so important in every aspect of the business. Consistently bringing in fresh inventory, consistently posting, consistently listing, consistency just across the board. That is, if there's one thing that I could share with you, it is be consistent.
Especially if you're selling on a social media platform. I think that that is doubly important, because the way that all of the social media platforms are and how they correlate the algorithms and decide what they are or aren't going to show to people, the more consistent you are, the better chance you have of your page or your listings or just your posts or whatever getting shown to the people that you want them to be shown to, because it's so easy to get lost in the shuffle of anything. It doesn't even just apply to vintage selling. If you aren't consistent with it, there are so many other people out there doing the same or similar things that it's so easy to get lost in that.
Agreed. And don't even worry about the views. Don't aim for having a video that gets 200,000 views. Even if your video gets 100 views, you only need that one right person, that item catches their eye and them to buy it, to make it worth posting that reel or that TikTok or that post. So you don't need a ton of views or you don't need a ton of engagement. You really just need to target the right people and to keep showing up, because eventually the people who have your style and like your items, they're going to find you if you keep showing up true to yourself over and over and over again. I also cannot emphasize enough the importance of setting your shop up in a way that works for you. When we started this, financially, our lives were a mess, and mentally, I was not in a great place. So I didn't have time for any extra stresses. I needed a business that was going to be easy. I needed things that felt within my mental capacity, and that's what I created. And there are so many different ways to do that when it comes to reselling, that don't get caught up in what one person is doing and how they had success for them, because all you need to do is figure out a way to set up your business in a way that you can be consistent. So from the beginning, I started live sales. I did a couple and they were so nerve-wracking and nobody showed up and it just didn't feel good. It felt like a lot of prep work for very little reward. And I was like, you know what? I am not going to do live sales. Even though at the time it felt like everybody else was doing live sales, I was like, that's not working for me. So I didn't do it. And on that same note, I'm probably never going to do a vintage market because setting up a booth seems so extremely overwhelming to me. And there are so many different places to resell. You can resell it at a booth in an antique store. You can resell at a booth at flea markets. You can resell on those marketplace platforms. You can resell on Facebook Marketplace. You can have your own website. There are so many different ways to do this that you get to choose what works for you. And when you start from the beginning, building a business in a way that feels like it's within your capacity and something that you can continue showing up at, I think that that's really powerful and will keep you going. And I think that that is one of the reasons that this business stuck, was because I really tried to focus on what's going to be realistic in my life right now. What can I do that is not going to feel like too much or too overwhelming? And it's definitely overwhelming in other ways, but I at least feel like I set it up in a way where this felt like it worked with my life instead of against it.
Well, I feel like ever since I've known you, you have been determined to have a successful business. You never wanted to work like a regular job. You were always set on building your own thing and having that support you and eventually letting you travel and do all the things that you want to do.
So we have been together for a really long time. a long time. And so you have seen the many businesses that I have tried and the ones that I've had a little bit of success at and the ones that I have failed at. So kind of from like an outsider's perspective who has seen the whole journey, what do you think it was about this one that stuck, that led to us getting to where we are now?
That you didn't overthink it. She is the queen of overthinking everything.
He's not wrong.
Literally everything. And I think to an extent that's good. I think that it's good to have a plan and to have a roadmap for what you want your business to look like. And I mean, I went through many steps of that with you in several different businesses probably. I don't even remember how many or how long that took because it was so long ago. But I think that this one was, well, I think there's two things. One is that you didn't overthink it. I think that, like I said earlier, desperation, didn't have the chance to. It was just like, I need to do this now, and I don't really have time to wait and map it out and set up a plan. So I think that's one. And I think the other thing is just overall how authentic and genuine you are, because I think that resonates with people. I think that comes through in social media content and in the live sales. And I think that that's another reason why Instagram platform has been so successful, is because you are able to not only have those one-on-one interactions, but you're able to show your personality and like true authentic self rather than just selling on the platforms or on a website. You're able to show people how passionate you are about this. And I think that everybody kind of feels that. Even when I hear you talk about them sometimes, it still feels like you're as excited to talk about them when you're selling them as when you saw them the first time in the store. And that excitement, I think, just like comes through and it resonates with everybody. So I think that those two things, and that's not even to say that in your other businesses you weren't genuine and authentic, but I don't think you ever had this sort of chance in this platform to showcase it. When I met you, you were, I don't know exactly what you were doing. You were putting events together, you were doing the PR stuff. And I think that when you're with clients in those sort of businesses, you're able to show that. But on this, you're able to show that to so many more people at a time. I think that sets you apart from so many other people because, again, there are so many vintage sellers and resellers in general. It's a very overcrowded field. It's not like they're hard to find. They're everywhere. But I think that that is one of the key things that kind of sets you apart.
Thanks, babe. That leads me to another piece of important insight that I've learned is I always thought, oh, you didn't need a niche. What's the right way to niche?
Niche, I believe, is the correct pronunciation.
Niche.
I'm not sure.
And so I always thought on social media I could just get away without a niche, that I could just post whatever I wanted and just share my life, and that eventually my people would find me. And that didn't work. I did try blogging for a while. I tried to build a social media presence, and I mean I had some success. I worked with quite a few brands and it definitely supported me for a bit. But I think I have realized in this journey how powerful it is to have one thing that you're focusing on and one thing that you're sharing excitement on, because you really get to build a strong community around that, and where everyone is passionate about the same things and gets excited. And it kind of goes back to consistency. When you're consistently showing up about the same topic and with the same types of content, I think it really allows people to resonate with just that one part of you. And that's not to say that you can't talk about other things or show other things, but I realized how powerful it is to start with that, because now we have built a community of the most amazing customers and followers that like I really do feel like I could share other things with them, and now they're going to be interested and they want to know what's going on in our lives because we've already connected with them on something else on such a personal level.
We do really have the best customers.
We really do.
I don't know how this community came together, but it is great. Everybody's so supportive, not only of you, but of each other.
And you.
I guess me.
They love seeing the husband finds and seeing you on the live sales. And I know in this episode, we really talked a lot about how our journey has grown, but there have been so many hard times too. And I feel like we should spend the last few minutes talking about the challenges.
You mentioned a minute ago about that you tried blogging. If anybody watching this gets the chance, I think that you should go to her YouTube channel and watch some of her vlogs that are still up before she deletes them. Because I feel like that day is coming soon where they will no longer exist.
I meant to delete them for a long time. I just haven't had a chance to go through them and
All right,
delete
so hurry
the
up.
ones I
Hurry
didn't
up.
like.
Go to the YouTube. I don't know what your YouTube address is to even tell them
Well,
what to
it's
go
going to
to.
be the same one.
Oh, that's true. I guess this is going on YouTube. I forgot. Sorry.
I really put myself in some embarrassing situations.
I felt like that tied in too, because you had mentioned blogging and also hard times. I feel like that is documented hard times on the internet for everybody to see. I would prefer that they stayed there forever, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know. We'll see.
You shot in a lot of really cool locations.
What does that mean?
Your backdrops for those videos were really impressive.
Most of them are at our old house. If you look at the shelves in some of those videos, they're much different than the shelves that are back here now. But so I really have tried, and I have tried hard at a lot of things, and I have failed at many different things. And I do really think that all of those failures have gotten me here. I think that the blogging and being on social media really gave me the insight on how to build a social media platform for this business. And everything, looking back, everything that I tried and failed at really does come full circle, because I feel like I have used everything that I've learned in this one successful business. But it was a journey, and financially it's been a journey. We have really crawled our way out of the trenches.
I mean, there were many months where I don't know how we were on the last day to get our mortgage paid or a certain bill paid, and somehow we dug it out. That was a common occurrence, especially at the old house. It was literally the last day, and somehow we had to make it happen. I've always wanted to have a business and to be my own boss because I hate being an employee. I'm not a bad employee. I don't like taking direction from other people, especially when it doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to tell me to do something, please explain why I should be doing it and why it makes sense. But
there's more to unpack there another day.
There's a lot more to unpack there. But so I was a delivery driver for quite some time, 6 years. And that was the last real job that I had before I quit there. And then that's when I started selling the action figures and then transitioned to this. And that was a rough period of life. I was making some money, not nearly enough to support everything that we had going on. And I don't think that it was enough for the work that I was doing. And then when I quit there, I didn't really have a plan. So that was interesting, trying to scrape by for those. Well, that was probably a year or so that happened before.
It was a while.
Before I really transitioned into this. So we've had a lot of rough times, and I was always really scared to make that jump, starting my own business. And that's kind of what I hope to do after I quit the delivery job and started selling the action figures, but it wasn't moving at the pace that I had hoped it would. And now this kind of feels like it's not my business, but it feels almost the same because I have that freedom. I have that flexibility in my schedule to work when I need to and also do personal things when I need to. I don't have to worry about scheduling vacations and calling out of work whenever I need to do something. So it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. And it just feels good, I guess, to finally be in that position and in a position that's closer to where I have always wanted to be.
And I think that is one of the reasons why anybody should try reselling, whether you want to make $200 to $300 a month, $2,000 to $3,000 a month, or $20,000 a month. I really feel like there is a spot in this reselling world for everybody and anybody. And especially with the state of today's economy, the secondhand market is larger than ever and on more radars, and it really, you really can make it work for your life. We work all the time. We work so hard to pull this off, but
it's literally just us. We do everything.
We do
Like
everything.
we have nobody else that assists or helps us with anything. So
no, our niece.
well,
But even though it is a lot of work, and so if you're going to jump into this, you do need to be ready for that. It's a lot of work, but the flexibility is amazing. The fact that we're not behind a computer all day, that we can go out and find items and source and have that balance between computer work at home and something exciting to get us out of the house feels really nice. It is so nice to be able to work from home. I have always struggled with anxiety and depression, and that's one of the reasons that I was like, I don't want a full-time job, because I can't imagine having to show up to a 9 to 5 on a day that I am struggling. And that was one of the reasons that I've always wanted to create something for myself that would support me. And I feel like that this has really done that. Even when I am still struggling, I can pack boxes. Like, that feels doable, even when nothing else does. If I don't feel like I can create content, if I don't feel like I can be on social media that day, there's always something about this business that I feel capable of doing. And that has been really powerful for me, whether it is listing or packing or creating content. There are different things that I get to choose what I want to do and what I want to work on. And that's been game changing for my career and for being able to make money and support me.
support both of us.
And now the fact that this business is something that supports both of us still blows my mind. It doesn't feel real.
Yeah. It is wild to think about, but we also haven't had time to think about it because everything has moved so quickly. Once we started the live sales and stuff picked up, that was it. We had no time. We have talked about so many other things that we've wanted to do. We've wanted to start this for I don't even know how long now.
Months, maybe even a year.
Probably close to a year. We talked about this a long time ago, and there's a lot of other things that we've talked about that we want to do, but we can just never find the time because what we're doing now with the business keeps us so busy. I feel like I can never even get caught up, let alone get ahead to feel like I have any extra time to work on anything else. So it's a good problem to have for sure, but I also feel like there is so much more opportunity for us to grow in other ways that I would really like to find the time to explore those avenues as well.
And we work all the time, and we are still just making enough money to support ourselves. So now we're in a position where we're trying to figure out what's next. How can we make some passive income? How can we grow the business so that we can take a little bit of a step back, breathe a little bit, and spend some more time taking care of ourselves rather than just working every day. So it's interesting to be on the other end of that after struggling financially for so long. But I'm so grateful that there are so many sales coming in and that we're having a fresh problem to solve. Feels good to have a new problem.
It's a different type of problem. Not only is it a new problem, it's a different type. It's not like the frantic, stressful, are we going to make it problem. It feels like, how can we grow now? Like you said, we're definitely not rich or anything like that. We're making enough to pay the bills. If you say so. It just feels like a better problem, I guess. It's a better kind of problem to have.
But we also, not only did we struggle financially leading up to this business, but even once this business started and once I kind of started to get the ball rolling, there were still so many months where I would have some sales, but not enough sales. And I was always trying to think about, what can I share? What piece of content can I do? What can I do differently to make some more money this month? I was always trying to think about, how can we make sure that this brings in enough to support me at the time, because it wasn't him yet. And I think that is another really beautiful thing about reselling, is that there's literally always more that you can do. If you need to make more money, you just list more stuff, or you have another live sale. Or if something, I haven't done this recently, but if something isn't selling on Instagram, I could always list it on eBay or Poshmark or Mercari or Marketplace. There are so many different ways that you can be flexible to really create something that is going to work for your life, as long as you're willing to put in the time and the effort.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the time. All of that does sound great, that is an option, but it is hard to find the time to do stuff, especially if you're working another job and you're doing this on the side. It's hard to find that time. And, some of these tasks are pretty time consuming. I guess it also depends on what level you're trying to do this at.
Yeah.
You can take pictures of the items on your phones and you can upload them straight to the sites. If you want to use eBay and stuff like that, you can do that relatively quickly. But if you're doing it like the way you do, with taking professional photos on a DSLR camera and then editing them and listing them on the website, that can be a very time consuming process. So I guess there's different levels to how you do things, how you want to do things. And I guess that's another good thing about it, though, is that there are different routes you can take with this. You can, if you mentioned earlier, if you just want to make a couple $100 extra or something like that, that's an option. You don't have to go through all the stuff that we go through. You can do a much simpler process to get there. Starting that off is that it's kind of a negative, but I guess it kind of turns into a positive at the same time. You can do it however you want, and you can spend as little or as much time on it as you have available.
All you really need to get started is a phone, some inventory, some things you don't want anymore, and to pick a platform that you want to start on. That's really all you need to get started. Let us know what you think about this episode. And I know we covered a lot, so let us know in the comments what you want us to dive into more, what aspects of our journey and our story and our struggles and our failures you would like to hear more about. And we'll make sure that we create some upcoming episodes on those topics so that we can get into all of this for you and hopefully give you some insight along the way.
And eventually our production will be much better than it currently is. I promise.
We're just working with what we have for now, and we're going to see how this goes. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening to us if you made it this far. And let's go find some vintage.